I'm Tanisha Dugan, Director of Arts, Culture, and Entertainment for the City of Hartford, and welcome to Long Weekend. This is began last night, the film festival, coordinated by the indomitable Jane Owen and her team at Jane Owen PR. Without her team, we would not have the film festival as it is. We also want to thank some of our, yes. And I have to tell you, I'm a girl with big dreams, and when I met Jane and Fernando, I found kindred spirits, folks who live in Connecticut who dream big and are looking to build bigger, better, and together here in Hartford and in Connecticut. So thank you both for your vision. We want to thank some of our presenting sponsors, obviously the state of Connecticut, America 250 Connecticut, Greater Hartford Gives Foundation, NBC Telemundo for being our media partner, United Way for providing us with volunteers and Express Kitchens. We are so grateful for their support. I'm going to turn it over to a hometown boy, grown man, I should say. Joel Cintron is a filmmaker, a photographer, and one of Hartford's sons. He is a community builder, and his upcoming film, Kapiku, is in the midst of financing. And so for those of you who are looking to get in on the ground level of a brand new independent film rooted here in Hartford, I encourage you to talk to Joel after. But I will pass the mic to Joel, who is moderating this incredible panel. Thank you all so much for being here, and enjoy this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanisha. Love you. All right. Move this over. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for participating with us in this heat. I've got some very talented, very film people with me. So can I have you first introduce yourself, what you're a part of, and how you're involved with film. So I'll start out with you.
I'm Ed Cohen. I am the co-founder and director of the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance. We're a 501c3. We're currently boasting over 790 members. And we are the ones that worked for the last 3 years to maintain the Connecticut Film Tax Incentive. We went to the legislature, we testified, we lobbied. I'm out of breath. Anyway, we're working to bring more film into Connecticut successfully and unify the industry successfully and try and keep people working.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Doug Ohlandt. I'm the former VP of Marketing with INDEMAND, who once upon a time was the top distributor of movies on demand across the nation. And I'm currently consulting with Stonecutter Media, this guy right here. Again, focused on marketing, and our real focus is on independent films. So we're happy to have you all here, and we're big fans of independent films.
Hello, Steve Karel. I've been in the media business since 1969. That's why I'm the last of the angry men. Stonecutter distributes everything. We've been in business for about 25 years. We distribute everything from film to ring sports and everything in between. Have a personal library of 6,000 titles.
Hi, my name is Emilio Nunez. I've worked in, I think, pretty much all facets of entertainment, from development to production to film distribution to television distribution. I'm currently working on a animated feature that hopefully I'll be able to bring to a festival like this at some point.
Oh boy, not good. I am Illeana Douglas, actress, writer, and I wrote a book called Connecticut in the Movies, which explores the history of Connecticut and cinema.
My name is, hello everybody, by the way. My name is Fernando Ferro. I'm a film producer and writer. Very lucky that over the last year, my company is able to produce 2 films, and we're gearing now to do a Stephen King adaptation. So really excited for the last 12 to 18 months, and happy to be with you guys.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so how does a film start? So like how, from concept, how does it get to you? And what is your role in that, making that into a film? Like, what is like the, what entices you to be a part of a film? Whether it's as a producer, whether it's an actor, marketing, what is that? What drives you?
I think all of us, to a certain degree, will probably say the same thing, that it starts on the page. The script is king. It's not something that you take and then like, oh, I can make it better. Like, it needs to exist on the page, because the minute that you say yes, you're acknowledging to yourself you're about to take a mountain-esque climb to try to get the film made to begin with. So if it's not on the script, I don't care who's attached or who's directing or who's distributing, if it doesn't exist on the page, it's probably a no. And the intention, I work a lot with writer-directors, so then it takes it a step further into intentionality behind what's on the page. What is motivating this filmmaker, whether it's something deeply personal or social or is something as to entertain, but really understand the why. Because like I said, it's an uphill climb to get any, like there's a joke, like no film should get made. Like it costs way too much money. It loses money more than it makes. Like there's no real, so you have to find the why. And for me, it's the page. Always 10 out of 10 first.
Thank you. Anyone else want to follow? Emilio?
Yeah, sure. The only thing I'd say about that is that I found kind of as time's gone on, it's helpful to have more, the more you can show somebody, the better it is. So if you've got a script, that's great, but it's gotten really difficult to get people to read scripts. It used to be like, oh, I've got a book I want to make into a movie. Will you read the book? No, it's the script. So I think if you've got a script, you've got some actors who are interested. If you can't afford to do the movie, you can go shoot a trailer. That's easy to do. You can always shoot a trailer. So, and the more you can put down, the more you can get into that and show off any of the attractive elements, the better chance you're going to have. You got to make it easy for somebody to want to be involved. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Emilio.
I wanted to piggyback what both of you guys said, which I agree, it begins with a script, and then sometimes you read the script and you're kind of like, not so sure about this. Then the next important thing is when you meet with the director and or the writer-director, they really need to kind of deliver for you, and it's a cliche term, but what their vision is for the filming. Because again, if it's a studio film, you're much more protected, but I think we're mainly talking about independent films, and so in that case, you kind of know it's going to be a journey and you're not going to make a lot of money, and you have to make absolutely sure that the director, and I think it's good to even ask questions if you're an actor, just to say, what is your DP? What are you thinking for the music? Because I think an independent film is possibly a little bit more collaborative. And so I think it gives you the leeway to ask more questions and make sure that, that you're not there on the set going, why did I do this again,
Awesome. Sorry, this mic is acting a little weird for me, but in terms of even with like location management, you had how do you even identify like where films should be made, and like how does that put into a role like with shooting, right? Because you have to shoot, block off time to be in a location, whether it's like a restaurant or permits and stuff. So how does that play into how you make a film as well?
It all starts. Is this working? Yeah. It all starts with the script. I read the script, and I get a vision, and I have an idea. I make a list of what locations I need. I can give them almost anything in Connecticut. It's amazing. But then the job really begins, because I have to get into the director's head as to what his vision of his movie is. I may see something in the script, in my mind, that is 180 degrees from what he has in his mind. And the only thing in making a movie that matters is the vision of the director. It's his film. So you go through a process. Happily, 90% of the time, I hit it on the first shot, but I've had a couple of times like, no, that's not it. And then you go in search of.
And so, Steven, Stonecutter Productions, and I'm sure I've seen a lot of the work that you have produced. So, as a producer, when you see that vision from the director and the budget and everything, and the budget, yeah. Sorry, this mic is. Yeah. And like the proposed budget, like how do you, when you're trying to, produce and then distribute, what does that look like for you in terms of like, yes, it's the director's vision, but where, and also with marketing coming to play as you both collaborate, how do you get that to go off the ground?
Well, for the most part, my work in films is distribution.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've done a lot of production of all kinds of major sports. Oh, grab it. Over the years, I've done a lot of production of sporting events, concerts, comedy, all kinds of nonsense. But right now, for a number of years, film, strictly distribution. Now, Doug looks at every project proposed to me. I literally do not look at the film, purposely, because it's a business arrangement to me. I judge everything starting with commercial viability. I don't look at mission statements. I don't look at art forms. I don't look at statements for the public welfare. I look at, can I make money for the owner of this film, and to use a very favorite expression of mine, help them pay the rent. Because there's an awful lot of people making indie films that can't. And if I stick to my type of craft, driving money in business is probably the best work I can do for somebody who decides to dance with me. Now, my guy Doug here looks at every film. We look at commercial viability. Number one largest affecting commercial viability today, good, bad, or indifferent, is cast. More than story, more than genre, talking about pure money-earning capability as an aggregate, okay? Genre second, and then go into other things. But when we look at a budget, and the last thing I'll mention for this sector, one of the things that producers as a whole, even guys who have done 10 and 20 films, big films, million-dollar films, multi-million-dollar films with bankable cast, they never come with a budget that sets aside hard dollars that can't be touched as finishing money or some other nonsense. That is set aside, PR, marketing. My contracts literally say, if you do not have money to market, you will make no money. So it has to be included when you put together the structure of a true plan to make a film that has any sense of commercial viability, and the percentage I use as gospel is 20% of the pure cash budget, no ifs, ands, or buts, that it'll cost to make that film. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, yeah, Doug, with you.
Yeah, so to add to what Steve said, we all love film. We, especially independent film. I mean, it's such a passionate thing. Someone has a vision and they're trying to capture that on film. but it doesn't matter if you can't sell it. You know, that's the thing. You have to keep in mind that there's an audience for your film. Who is that audience? Where is this film going to show? How can we reach that audience? And it's, you know, Steve's right. You know, we see a lot of times people haven't thought about that. And look, I get it. It's an art form. And so you're not thinking of the business angles to it. But there are business angles to it. And it's important for you from the start to be thinking of that. Who am I making this film for? Who's going to want to watch my film? And how can I get them to pay money to see my film?
Awesome. Emilio.
Oh, yeah, I just want to add one thing to that, is that there are strategies outside of distribution and making money, right? I mean, the strategy of making a short in order to get a feature made, I think that's really effective. That there are so many examples of that strategy succeeding, using the same cast or using the same story. So I think you might say, well, I'm going to make this money, I'm going to make this film for a little bit of money. I don't need to make money on it. I just need to get some exposure that's going to lead to something else. Some people just make movies to have a calling card, to have something out there that they can say, look, I mean, that's a great strategy. And I think I just wanted to add that on to what you said, because you guys were talking about the business side, which is very important, obviously. We can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to make movies all the time without any money. But there are other strategies in order to get somewhere and get your film ultimately distributed.
Yeah, and for the producers that I have here, what does that dance look like, right? You want to be creative, right? But you have to take budget in mind. So like, how do we dance with that, with even like credits and paying on the back end? What does that look like, especially for a budget that's not the best?
The industry has changed quite considerably. Where 10 years ago you were negotiating, going back to what you said, back end deals to get talent of a certain level to come on to an independent film based on the idea of what the film can produce in the marketplace. Now, with the growth of streamers and alternative methods of distribution, I've been negotiating more streamer bonus deals, especially within the pipeline of distributing a film. Now, my personal experience comes from the usage of film festivals as a perfect sort of launch pad for an independent film. We've had films, from Sundance to Toronto. My partners had films in Cannes, all independently produced. And it was a great test market of reaction from an audience that allowed buyers and distributors to see the potentiality of the movie. But then at the same time, and I say this with a lot of confidence, you also just don't know. Like, there was a film that came out a couple months ago that was produced for $750,000. And it was a horror film, but it captured a moment in time that you can't put a pinpoint on it, and it's grossed $300 million. Now, obviously, that's an anomaly. That isn't what happens, but it also shows that it could happen. So there's a million ways to marketing, I think, is the most important thing, and utilizing all avenues to market. There's traditional market methods, but there's also alternative ones that have proven to be incredibly successful that are more direct to consumer. Obviously, the use of social media, et cetera, and we've seen a lot of that. There's been conversations of these companies now that flood content through the TikToks and the Instagrams, and that formulates like some level of attention and creates a viralness to the film that could be real, could be not. That's heavily debated right now on what's really behind that. But it's a pretty open canvas. You definitely have to think about it from the beginning. And from a producer end, that's very much on our mindset when we take on a project. But it's not the reason, personally, why I take on a project. I've made films that have launched careers to filmmakers where maybe that particular movie wasn't deemed financially successful, but it launched a voice, and the next one was. So, I also look at it as a producer that I'm in the repeat business. I want to work with filmmakers more than once. I want to work with talent more than once. And if the first one doesn't necessarily hit, but we saw something special, then we go up and ante up again. So I have no idea what your question was, but I think it kind of worked. If not, my apologies.
And to dovetail off of what you said, you know, that film that was made for $750,000, and there was another film that came out right after it. You know, that was years and years and years of them essentially marketing themselves as a product on YouTube that enabled those films to make that kind of money. You know, so this doesn't happen in a vacuum. They created brands for themselves and capitalized on that through the creation of these films.
I would say for young filmmakers, that's such a great outlet because of how, I mean, easy is not the word, but how accessible like equipment is and talent is to just want to work on stuff and building out not just your quote unquote brand, but mastering your skills, right? Like these cats were doing YouTube stuff and you could watch it and be like, yeah, some of it worked, some of it didn't, but they were owning the craft. They were putting in their 10,000 hours. And when they got their opportunity, they, you know, made the most of it. I think we shouldn't look down as filmmakers with YouTube or whatever. Like, if it's accessible and it allows an audience to find you, utilize it. And if it doesn't cost you anything, utilize it. It doesn't cost you anything to put something on YouTube outside of you doing the thing. So those kids, I think, are going to create a new wave, honestly. And I'm excited for it. I just don't fall into the trap of like, oh, because they did it, that's what I'm going to do too. Because we're going to get a lot of cheap copycats out of it, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure every studio exec is looking for a YouTuber right now. So that doesn't mean that because they work for them, it's going to work for you. You just have to be open to everything, you know.
Emilio?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that Fernando's talking about how 10 years ago the film business was a little bit different. If we had this panel 10 years ago, it would be a completely different discussion. But two things that are really, I think, important for a filmmaker to think about, it's changed dramatically, is it used to be that filmmakers thought, if I don't have a theatrical release, it's going to be a disaster. That's the most important thing. This has to go in a theater. That's completely changed now. People still want to get their movies in a theater, understandably, and that can help down market. But there's so many different film windows now, whether it's through television or for AVOD or through SVOD or for transactional video on demand. And YouTube, social media. There's so many different ways to monetize. And the other thing that's changed that ties into is that when you made a short, I made a short 30 years ago, there was a very, very limited market for what I could do with that short. That's completely changed. I don't know, how long is your short?
It's about 20 minutes.
Right, 20 minutes. So that's something that would be really tough back then, right?
Yeah.
How do you have a 20-minute short? Thank you. And what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's so many different outlets, and I think it's going to change even more. I think attention spans are different. There's a whole generation who doesn't want to sit through a huge film. They want to watch something on their phone. So you're going to see a lot more content that's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
And what do you think that does for the film industry of like how we make our choices even more? Because you have to really consider people's attention spans. What, you know, there's so much flooding of different content on these different streaming services. And I know you had mentioned streaming services earlier, Fernando. So it's just like, you know, how do we navigate that?
What's great is that it expands your opportunities, right? I mean, that's the greatest thing is that it used to be you went to one of the studios or you went to get money from an independent producer or however that was going to work. Now you can go anywhere. You can go to people who aren't in the content business because they want to have something playing in the back of taxis or robocars or whatever. I mean, so I think thinking about non-traditional distribution is increasingly important. So when you're looking, don't just think in terms of, oh, I've got to go get this to Sony, right? There are a lot of places you can get your content, especially shorter form content.
From the attention span point, I would say, and again, I'm probably on an island, don't fall into the trap of making shit shorter and snappier because of the assumption that that's what audiences want. It heightens the bar of what you have to make, I think, to keep their attention for sure. But that should be the goal anyway. Like, The Brutalist was like a 4.5-hour movie with an intermission, and people could not stop seeing it or were so moved by it because they knew exactly what they wanted to make. So it's a reality, but it's not a scapegoat to choices that you should make creatively, I think.
Well, and to what everyone's been saying here, you know, there are so many forms of distribution now, and there's almost in a way been a great democratization of filmmaking, of video making, that you can really distribute it anywhere. You can have something that you're passionate about, and if you don't, you know, as Emilio said, care about making money for it, and you just want people to see it, throw it up on YouTube. You know, as Fernando said, you know, get your practice licks in on YouTube. You know, there's so many ways to go about this, both in terms of perfecting your craft and getting your final product seen.
The only thing, and he's my guy, the only thing I would contend with you, Doug, on that is that we all know the viewing habits of audiences differ monumentally today. I, who've been around 100 years, have cable in my house that I pay $1 billion for, and I have Roku boxes on every set with every possible app because it's my business to see anything that's out there, okay? But there are so many movies that we put out or competitors of mine put out that make their most money on streaming, rental streaming, before they ever touch AVOD. There are other films of mine that earn most of their money on cable, where cable still exists. There's 40, 50, 60 million cable homes that do a lot of TVOD business and ESD business, where I met this fellow next to me. But yet, the young folks of today, in my humble judgment, are the people that like to watch short programming as an aggregate. And when you look at a product for distribution, yes, somebody could just want to get their name out there. Guys bring me films, or ladies bring me films, and say, we don't intend to make any money, but how many TVOD or EST channels or networks can you put an opening film on? And I say probably 10, given my output deals and my relationships. And that's pretty much every film that comes to me. And there are people that spend money to put out a film to do that, knowing they're not going to get that money back, but they have long-term viability of viewership on all those channels. There are other people, in fairness, that come to me with their literal life savings. And they have to look at that movie coming out, and Jane Owen worked with me on a couple of films like that recently. Great PR person. There's the paid political announcement. Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm not a guy with a lot of good things to say about PR people. Another one of my legends. But seriously, there are people that come to me and they say they have to get their money back. Putting aside investors, many cases their investors don't carry the movie. The pennies the family saved up, their money from a straight job went into that film. So are those that really do, their life rolls on the results of that movie. Creative exploration is viable when you can afford it. That's a distinct judgment that has to be made in the planning of the film.
Agreed.
Oh yeah, I agree entirely. I mean, you know, like Steve said, I mean, these people, you know, some of these producers, they're so passionate about their film, and the idea meant so much to them in terms of making these films that they literally poured every penny they had, every savings that they had into making these films. And for them, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, they made something that was passionate for them, but they got to keep the house. They got to keep paying the rent. They got to pay Con Ed or whoever, you know. So they need some money coming back in. And, you know, that's where distribution helps. That's where work like what Jane does with PR is a tremendous help. And all the marketing that goes into a film. That's how you're going to make your money back.
Yeah, hello? Yes, we also formed a production company called Castle Fires Entertainment. And we are currently working on 3 major projects, and that's just internally. One of them is actually about a $20 million budget. We also are working on doing some documentaries, and we're working with this gentleman out here, Steve, and he put together a documentary, Hollywood to Hartford. And we just finished the last segment shoot. It's in post-production. Should be out in August. And so that's going to be great. The people that are in it are amazing, and he's doing an incredible job of shooting and editing. And then we've got another one Alessandro is putting together with us. And Alessandro is putting together a documentary on Shabu. Has anybody ever heard of Shabu? Nobody's heard of, a gentleman has heard of Shabu. It is one of the most famous dance halls in history, and it was right in Willimantic. And it goes back so far that I was still in college when it was starting out and knew the guys that started it. And I just turned 80. So this place has its place in history, and we're going to make sure that word gets out on what it was. Every major dance hall owner in the country flew in to Connecticut to find out how 4 high school kids managed to pull off a super place that held 1,000 people, that had all of the major artists come through. Their first artist in there was Aerosmith, and it was so new that they put up a poster that was spelled ARROWSMITH. They went in and they played for $175, and that was the first time they ever played Dream On in public. So this place has incredible history. When you see that documentary, you will go absolutely nuts. I've also got a film that I brought in. They were either going to shoot in Connecticut or Ireland. They are now shooting in Connecticut, and that's coming in from Hollywood. There's a lot of stuff. I'm working on another film that I'm scouting, and he asked me, "You want to be in it?" So push comes to shove, I am now doing 7 scenes in a 2-hour sci-fi movie from a director in Rhode Island, and he's using everybody here in Connecticut and Connecticut locations, and it's just simply amazing. It's going to be a great, great film. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
And when we talk about history, I know, Illeana, you wrote a book about Connecticut in film. So can you talk more about that and why it's, how much of a culturally rich film scene we have, or at least with locations? And
Well, it's just that, if you want to make movies in Connecticut as a filmmaker, it's nice to, just look back. We've been making movies here since the silent era, and there's quite a history of Connecticut cinema. So, I don't know, I'm always just, I'm a little analog in terms of my film history. So I wrote this book called Connecticut in the Movies, and if you want to pick it up, it'll just tell you the history of all the movies and filmmakers and actors that have, that have made movies here. That's all. Sorry.
no, that's great. So when we say Hollywood to Hartford, how do you think we can do Hartford to Hollywood, especially given with, again, social media and all of that? And even as you said, we're, instead of shooting in Ireland, we're actually shooting in Connecticut, and how important that is.
You actually do not want to go shoot in Hollywood. Hollywood, for all intents and purposes, killed itself. There is nothing going. I have a lot of friends. I lived out in California for 12 years. A lot of my friends that worked on huge projects are now unemployed because they overregulated. They drove people nuts with the pricing. The traffic drives them nuts. It's just out of control. So Hollywood has abdicated at this point.
Yeah,
Strong words.
I think Connecticut actually has a chance to be like a modern day, and for people in the industry, they recognize that Georgia became a state where there was a lot of production over the last 30 years. Louisiana, I'm a firm belief that Connecticut could be that in the Northeast. Outside of its proximities to major cities, just the seasonality of the state, the culture that already exists, the appetite for productions to come, the employment it could create, the entire economy that it could create. I think it's a special place that hasn't been oversaturated at all, and we're seeing that happen now in New York and New Jersey. I think for something to happen, and I've said this before, there has to be just a very united coalition that extends beyond filmmakers like yourselves, but it goes to members of local and state government officials and even people from Hollywood that could see the potential that we all do about what it could be. But I think it's actually incredibly doable. I don't think it's a pipe dream by any case. Like, I think that if we all literally come together and have a very specific ask of what it's going to take to make Connecticut a prime place for not just local filmmakers, but an attractive location for filmmakers across the world to shoot, I think what it could do for the state would, I think, even be more profitable and more successful than places like Georgia and places like Louisiana, which are now completely overdone with productions, and you can't find a place to shoot there. Like, this is new. We just all have to be unified in what the ask is and start honestly making movies here, no matter the scale. But we have to have that support, I think.
I would also look at the successes and failures of places like Georgia, Louisiana, even the Hudson Valley just west of here, what they've done right, what they've done wrong in determining, how you can best make films here in Connecticut.
At this point, I've been in this industry. I've been in music for 60 years now. But I've been in the film industry for the last 5 years. I am now working in Connecticut on my 23rd and 24th film. If that doesn't tell you that we're alive and well, I don't know what does.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Questions here. So, with marketing, so does word of mouth still matter in terms of like when you're trying to, push a film through like the channels of distribution and all of that? I'm trying to, I'm using myself as a case study, right? So when I actually put my film together, what would be my next step? Like showing it in like independent theaters, or, I feel like YouTube is such a small screen, or just, like actual, TV or anything. I want to put it in like an actual movie. So what is that, like a movie theater, what does that look like for me as someone who's interested in doing that?
Just look at something like this, like film festivals have created careers. And I'm not just talking about like the Sundances or the Cannes. Film festivals have been an incredible support system for independent filmmakers, both in the feature space and in the short space, because it gives you a feedback of the film that you've made to an audience that is wanting to be there. Like, I would go on Film Freeway or Film Free or and look at all the film festivals in your area, in the tri-state area, regional, national, international, and start applying. I promise you, like, you could go an entire festival run on your film. Now, would it generate money? And no. would it do your intention of getting the film out there, receiving the feedback, possibly having potential new collaborators watch it, and most importantly, which is what I think all of us have the hope for this festival, form a community. You have no idea how many cats that I've met at these film festivals have been people I ended up working with time and time again, because we all met at the same time, in the same place in our careers, and we decided to come together. So I'm nowhere without what film festivals did for me personally. And I think for young filmmakers that want that experience, and there's so many, just dive into it.
What he said. The other thing is, to get your film made, it always starts with the script. Get the script to somebody that can analyze it. If they like it, you've got to develop a package or you're going nowhere to get it made. You have to have an unbelievable pitch deck, and I don't mean just a casual. I mean something that knocks their socks off. You've got to have somebody attached, a major star, because otherwise they don't care. It's bankability, and the star is what makes it bankable. You've got to have a top-line budget, and it needs to be a real budget from Movie Magic, which is not something to trifle with. It's unbelievably difficult. You got to get somebody that knows what they're doing. And once you have that whole package together, then you can present it to somebody, and then they're going to analyze it for bankability and see whether they want to work with you. Once you get it funded, then a lot of people will look at it and say, oh, I want to distribute that. So that's how you kind of climb that ladder. It is not for the faint of heart. We've got a film right now that we've been pitching for a year and a half. It has, let's see, a guarantee contract for 3,108 domestic screens, for $5 million in P&A, which is marketing and copies, and that's on paper. It's a faith-based film. The Vatican is writing a background on it, an analysis. They love it. It has major stars attached, and we can't get it funded. So it's not for the faint of heart. That's been a year and a half. It will go, but right now people are just leaving money on the table.
Before I make a couple of comments on festivals, has that product gone to Angel Studios? Have you gone to them for financing? Yeah, you have? Nothing so far?
So they don't want to step on that.
Really? No, because they're the newfound sector in that community, you know? A lot of people are making a lot of money with them right now.
Oh, no, absolutely. They're an incredible company.
You know?
And
they have a thought process very different than almost everybody on earth.
exactly,
frankly.
and they've made great money with it.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, no, we definitely...
I was just curious because I would have thought you might have gone to talk
No,
to them.
we've talked to just about everybody on earth in a
Okay.
year and a half.
Gotcha. What I was going to say about festivals is, frankly, they're a source of where I get clients. I have folks of mine that I send around the country, and we pick and choose our festivals, but we go there. Number one, we like to make some contribution to the audience to talk about distribution, where a lot of festivals have no commentary on that. They talk gloriously about making product, but they do not comment well about what to do with the product once it's finished. And we're given the opportunity, we speak to that. But even if they do offer commentary and have folks like me or other people in the distro business holding seminars, we still like to have representation there because we get to look at films and grab something if it makes sense for us commercially. So some people have budget limits, and I've had guys come to me and say, well, we would like to have gone to 20 or 30 festivals in a 9-month period before we got into serious distro discussions, but we could afford 6. And then I say, well, you better make darn sure you pick the right 6. Because there are a lot that don't bring you from a festival what you need ultimately. Because the thing you also have to remember about a festival, and this is just the reality of indie films versus studio films. When they talk about a John Wick number 27 coming out in a year, everybody remembers that. But if somebody is in a festival and heard about an indie product, something that cost 150 grand to make, and it shows up on Amazon or Fandango 9-10 months later, that knowledge has dissipated. So it's a consideration of how you manage playing in the circle of festivals.
Yeah, Emilio.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing about the festivals, just following up on what Fernando said. Get out there, go to all these festivals, and don't be shy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's really hard because you show up at a festival, you think you're one of thousands of filmmakers, but this industry is so good at doing favors. If somebody likes your content and likes you and believes in you, they'll do you a favor. And I think you can't be shy about asking in the development stage, in the production stage. The way I've been able to get so many things done before I worked for a company or a corporation that actually had the funds to go out and allow me just to have a production budget was by getting people to do things for free. I made a short film. I did everything wrong. I shot it on 35 millimeter, which is really expensive. I made a short that was 40 minutes long, so they wasn't considered a feature or considered a short. It was, from a distribution point perspective, it was a disaster. But through film festivals and through the film festival circuit, I met so many people that later in life ended up being contacts that helped promote me to get me a job, to help me work with or give me other deals. So whether or not you're showing up at these film festivals and you've got your own little kind of funny marketing gag that you're doing, where you've got a booth and you're handing out postcards or pins or whatever novel thing you've come up with, get out there and make the most of it and meet as many people as you possibly can. That's all.
And be selective about which festivals you're going to. You know, if you've got a horror film, you don't want to go to a romance convention. You know, you want to. There's plenty of horror film conventions out there. Go to those. Focus on those. That's where the people who are most interested in your type of film are going to be.
Awesome, thank you. And so, again, I'm going to use my short film experience. So I'm going to look for actors, right? What would I kind of do in that sense of like auditioning? What should I look for? Or even just who do I reach out to, right? Because there's SAG, there's all of these different things. So I'm, again, not really familiar just yet. I'm dipping my toes, but I definitely want to understand what does that look like for hiring actors, and even on the acting standpoint of like the actor side.
Best thing I can recommend is join the Alliance. You will meet a lot of these actors at the networking events. And Don Q, who is our president currently, has his own agency, Crooked Smile Agency. He is tied into everybody and all the films coming in. And he's a good guy. He can get you your actors.
Definitely connect.
I mean, it really depends. It really depends the type of film you want to make, and I know you're doing research on it, but if you are going to do a film in conjunction with SAG, there's a considerable amount of protocols you're going to have to go through that also directly affect how you put together the budget and create your... I'm getting in the weeds, but like that's a big question. Are you working with what is your film and scope and size, which I don't know, but for me, outside of principal leads, which we usually, outside of personal relationships, go through agents, whether it's through our casting director, which, if you could afford one, it's an incredible source of resource, or our job. Like, I've casted movies pretty much with the help of a casting director or producing partners, or sometimes just myself. But if you're going through that, big question is, in the union, like, it has to be a union certified project. If not, hold open auditions. Go to colleges. So many acting schools here. Go to theaters. That's the thing about Connecticut that is pretty lovely, is that it's not a lack of talent. And you might find and discover some that might need, that aren't in the union yet, but this project could be a step for that. So if that's the goal, that's what I would do. Acting classes, colleges, and then build out an audition process through that.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess we'll wrap it up. Do we have any questions that you'd like to ask our panel?
I think everybody's
Yeah.
about to pass out, which I totally understand.
What do you look for in actors as a filmmaker or
I mean,
producer?
it's really, do they embody? I mean, this is gonna sound so broad and cliche, but honestly, do they embody the part and land within the vision of what the director wants? You'll be shocked in some of the choices we've made. And I'll give you an anecdote that I think could tell you really embodies a part. We were casting a film, and a really prominent actor came to take a meeting with us for this part. And we met, and he read with us, and he's, again, prominent actor. When he left, we were like, well, obviously, this is the guy. Let's just get this guy. But we had a couple other actors that we had scheduled that day, and the last one was a theater actor who had done very little film or television. He was just a theater actor. He came in, and at this point, we were resolved. We were like, we got our dude. We'll do this out of kindness, but we have our guy. This cat came in, and when I told you he blew us away, he just was the character. I'd never seen anything like it. And when he left, my director and I kind of looked at each other, and we were like, this is the guy. Everyone around us was like, are you guys insane? This guy's barely done any film and television. I was like, you didn't. The emotional response I got from watching this guy audition didn't come close. It was singular. And we ended up casting that guy. And let me tell you something. He's great in the movie. I could not see that role with anybody else. So it's all subjective in the end of the day, but it really comes down to, do they bring this character that's written on a page and give it a heartbeat, give it a soul, give it contradictions, give it an essence that you're like, oh, I'm looking at the character. Which I don't think that answers anything, but that's honestly, yeah, it really just does it come to life.
How did he blow you away?
He didn't act the part. He showed up with props that he brought himself. And he was an older gentleman, and there's a scene in that was in the audition where he was playing chess with his grandson, and he just started playing chess, and then he started ad-libbing the game of chess as he was doing the scene, and then he went off on a weird tangent, and we started crying. He wasn't acting. I mean, I don't know, it's instinctual, but for me, I was like, I saw the dude. I didn't see an actor playing the guy. Yeah, he was that person.
All right, we're all set. Thank you very much for. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. obtaining funding?
My first thing was you're looking for non-union actors. Hi, right here. But the funding, if somebody can just take a minute to do obtaining funding 101, can somebody address that for a second? Or is it not that simple?
It's pretty much the process that I mentioned before. You start with a script. You get a good response on the script. You have to develop the killer pitch deck. And there are formulas for what you need in that. And it needs to be incredibly well made. And I mean, we even did music with ours, and it's like epic music. People get tears in their eyes when they look at this pitch deck. And then you have to have the budget. Without the budget, nobody's going to look at funding you. And it's got to be accurate. And that means that you got to break down the script. You've got to find out everything, how many characters are in it, who they are. It's very, very complex. And you have to get an attachment, because the attachment is the bankability.
And also keep in mind, your funding is probably, more than likely, even if it doesn't seem like it's a lot of money, is going to come from more than one source. So you're going to have to pitch it to multiple people. You know, you're not just going to send it to one person and they're going to be like, oh yeah, here's $500,000. No, you're going to get 50,000 there, 25 there, 75 there. You know, so it's a lot of work to pitch your concept and your idea to even get the funding.
This is getting in the weeds, and we could offline if you like, but there's multiple structural ways to set up a project. I mean, the clearest cut is an equity component, meaning if you have a $2 million film, you raise $2 million. How you do that, exactly how he said, and how I've done. You knock on 1 million doors, and you try to raise that equity. Now, and I know these cats know more about it than I do on that side of the fence, there are something called pre-sales. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds, but if you're making a genre movie and you have an actor of some note, you could bring on what's called a foreign sales agent. They take it out to an international market, pre-sell the movie, meaning sell it territory by territory, internationally and domestic sometimes, and then you loan against the note of what they're willing to buy it for, and then usually they'll leave you with a gap, and then you raise that gap. So then you're talking like a more interesting sort of finance model, but one very prominent with independent film, very actor-led. The actor has to be some note for an agent to take it, but a genre, IP, that all kind of lends to the pre-sale model. Yeah, I mean, I could like nerd and get weird with it, but the two common phrases, equity, and then you're intelligent with the budget. If you think it's $2 million, but if you really tell yourself you can make it for $500,000, which a lot of great films are being made in the $500,000 to $1 million mark, you land there, you take it to a state like Connecticut with a 30% rebate. So that's soft money, because that 30% on the Connecticut spend comes back to you. So you loan against that, and you start building out a financial structure where your actual money that you need to raise isn't the actual amount. It's something less than. Where does it shoot? Would you want to shoot it here in Connecticut? Apply for the Connecticut tax credit. Like, meet with people within the state that could help you and give you the prerequisites to apply for the credit, because that 30%, now you introduce it to your finance model. So meaning 30% is covered by the state of Connecticut of the spend. So instead of that $1 million, remove 30%. All right, now I have to raise X amount.
It has to be $1 million or more to get the 30%.
All right, see, that's what he knows.
Yeah, so
But
if you're under $1 million, like 500,000 to $1 million, it's 15%. If you're under that, it's 10%. So you have to be very aware of what your budget drives.
You get creative. Like the last film I shot in Colombia because I did the exchange rate between the dollar and the Colombian peso, and the 30% credit, and I realized that my equity raise was going to be considerably less because I got a lot of money back off those two things, and I pre-sold some international territories. Like there's many ways to skin the cat outside of just raising hard equity. And someone, these cats know more about that than I do.
I can't hear you. Oh, I thought I did that before, but Connecticut Film and TV Alliance, our mission is to unify the state, because it was pretty much, when Jonathan Black and I started this, it was pretty much a cottage industry. Nobody talked to anybody else, nobody trusted anybody else, and it really was going nowhere. We had two big filmmakers, and that was it. We had Andrew Gernhardt with his synthetic cinema, who did an amazing job. So Andrew, right now, is shooting up in Buffalo because of the tax incentive challenges. And then we had David Gear, who's done a whole bunch of projects here in Connecticut before we were around. Now everybody is working together, and it's been incredible. And we're actually able to show Hollywood that we have crews, we have talent here. One thing we don't have is sound stages, but we were in the process of doing that when they first challenged the tax incentive. So it's growing, it's strong, and our object is to keep people working here in Connecticut, not having them have to flee to New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, wherever. They're trained here, we have incredible talent, and we want to keep them working in Connecticut. How do you join? Okay. It's CTF. I always get this wrong. CTFTV. CTFTVA.org. And if you go to that, you can sign up, and it's free. We don't charge you anything on it. The whole thing is we want people in there because that is showing strength in the state to the legislature, to the governor, and it's worked out really, really well.
Thank you so much. This was incredible. Thank you to Joel for moderating, to all of you for joining us. I will boost that tax credit comment by reminding us that we worked really hard this year to get a little bit of a boost of tax credit. So we definitely believe in this industry and in this time. Thank you all for joining us.